The morning of December 24th, 2002, began like any other holiday eve in the quiet suburb of Modesto, California. Lacey Peterson, 27 years old and 8 months pregnant, moved through her home on Covina Avenue with the careful grace of someone carrying new life. Her dark hair was pulled back, her face flushed from the mild winter air she planned to breathe during her routine walk with the family dog Mackenzie. She wore comfortable clothes suited for the short stroll through the neighborhood, perhaps a light jacket over her maternity top, pants that accommodated her growing belly. Scott Peterson, her husband of 6 years, had already left the house earlier that morning. He told her he was heading to the office briefly, then out to do some last-minute shopping or errands. Lacey kissed him goodbye, or maybe just waved as he pulled away in his truck, the kind of casual farewell that happens thousands of times a day in homes across America. By afternoon, the house felt too still. Mackenzie wandered the backyard alone, leash still attached, barking occasionally at nothing. Lacey's mother, Sharon Rocher, received a call from Scott around 5 in the evening. He sounded confused, almost casual. He had just gotten home, he said, after a day of fishing at the Berkeley Marina, about 90 miles away. The dog was in the yard, but Lacey was gone. No note, no sign of struggle, just an open back door and her purse left on the kitchen counter with her keys inside. Scott asked if Lacey had come to her parents' house for some holiday preparation. Sharon said no, alarm rising in her voice. She and her husband Ron Gransky hurried over. Within minutes, police arrived, uniforms filling the small living room as they took statements. Scott explained his day again. Left around 10, stopped at the warehouse he managed for his family's fertilizer business, then drove to the marina to launch his new aluminum boat for a solo fishing trip. He caught nothing worth keeping, he said, just some sardines for bait. He returned home to this empty scene. The search started immediately. Neighbors fanned out, calling Lacey's name through darkening streets. Police dogs tracked scents that led nowhere conclusive. Flyers went up overnight. A smiling pregnant woman due in February, missing since Christmas Eve. The story spread fast. Television crews arrived. Satellite trucks parked along the quiet block. Friends and family gathered at the Rocha home, holding vigils, praying for a happy ending. Scott appeared in front of cameras, voice steady but eyes distant. He pleaded for information, said he loved his wife, couldn't imagine life without her or their son, whom they had already named Connor. He wore a button with Lacey's ultrasound photo pinned to his shirt. People watched, some moved, while others uneasy at how composed he seemed. 6 days later, on December 30th, a woman in Fresno named Amber Fry contacted Modesto police. She was 27, a single mother and massage therapist who had met Scott through a friend at a party on November 20th. He had introduced himself as single, no ring on his finger, charming smile, easy conversation. They went out that night, slow dancing in a dimly lit bar, then back to his hotel room where they spent the night together. Champagne, strawberries, laughter. The next morning, he left her his cell phone number. Over the following weeks, they saw each other often. Hikes where he carried her toddler daughter, dinners, intimate nights at her home, or his hotel when he was in town for business. Scott spoke of future plans, hinted at a life they could build. On December 9th, he called her unexpectedly and drove over. He admitted he hadn't been entirely honest. He had been married, he said, but his wife had died. This would be his first Christmas as a widower. Amber, touched by his vulnerability, believed him. They continued seeing each other. When Amber saw Scott's face on the news as the husband of the missing pregnant woman, the world tilted. She recognized him instantly. Heart-pounding, she called the tip line. Detectives met her quickly. She told them everything. The affair, the lies about being single then widowed, the ongoing contact even after Lacey vanished. Police asked her to keep talking to Scott, to record the calls, to which she agreed. For weeks she spoke with him, phone pressed to her ear and recorder running silently. Scott called her often and his voice affectionate, sometimes emotional. On New Year's Eve, while a candlelight vigil for Lacey took place in Modesto, he told Amber he was in Paris for business, celebrating quietly. She listened with her stomach churning, as he described non-existent Eiffel Tower views and champagne toasts. In another call, he spoke of missing her, planning their future. Amber asked questions carefully, probing without alarming him. The recordings captured his calm denials when she gently brought up the news reports, his insistence that the media had it wrong. The affair revelation hit the public like a shockwave. On January 24th, 2003, Amber stepped in front of cameras at a Modesto police press conference. Tears in her eyes and voice trembling, she confirmed the relationship. Scott had told her he was not married when they met. Later, he claimed his wife had died. She had no idea about Lacey until the missing posters appeared. The press conference played endlessly on cable news. Scott's image as the grieving husband cracked. Police intensified scrutiny on him. They searched the Covina house repeatedly, the warehouse, and his truck. They examined his boat, a 14-foot aluminum craft he had purchased just weeks earlier. On April 13th and 14th, 2003, dog walkers and beachcombers along the Richmond shoreline of San Francisco Bay made grim discoveries. First, the body of a male fetus, then the remains of an adult woman, decomposed but identifiable through dental records and DNA as Lacey and Connor. The location aligned disturbingly with the Berkeley Marina, where Scott had spent Christmas Eve supposedly fishing. Scott was arrested on April 18th in San Diego. He told arresting officers he was heading to his father's house, but the evidence suggested flight. Prosecutors charged him with 2 counts: first-degree murder for Lacey with special circumstances, second-degree for Connor. He pleaded not guilty. The trial began June 1st, 2004, in Redwood City after venue change from Modesto due to publicity. In court, prosecutors laid out the timeline. Scott had no verifiable alibi for the morning Lacey vanished. Witnesses who thought they saw her walking the dog that day were inconsistent on time and description. Cell phone records placed Scott near the marina early. Tide charts and currents supported the theory that bodies dumped there could wash up where they did. The boat contained a single hair consistent with Lacey's DNA on a pair of pliers. Prosecutors argued motive. Scott wanted out of the marriage without losing everything. Lacey's pregnancy complicated divorce. The affair with Amber showed he had already moved on emotionally. Amber testified for days, voice steady as she recounted the relationship, played the recordings. Jurors heard Scott lie about Paris, about his life, about everything. The defense countered no direct evidence, no blood, no weapon. The affair was irrelevant to murder. Scott was a loving husband, excited about fatherhood. Sightings of Lacey walking the dog proved she was alive after he left. The bodies could have come from anywhere in the bay, polluted waters, perhaps a random crime. After 5 months of testimony, on November 12, 2004, the jury convicted Scott of first-degree murder for Lacey and second-degree for Connor. In the penalty phase, they recommended death. The judge agreed, sentencing him to lethal injection on March 16, 2005. He described the crime as cruel and heartless. Scott maintained innocence, eyes fixed ahead as shackles clinked. Years passed and appeals dragged. In 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned the death sentence due to jury selection issues regarding death penalty views. In 2021, he was resentenced to life without parole. He remains in prison, filing motions through groups like the Los Angeles Innocence Project claiming new evidence, destroyed leads on other suspects, flawed science on fetal age, investigative bias. Courts have largely denied them, but proceedings continue. The case lingers in public memory. A Christmas Eve disappearance, a secret affair exposed, bodies in the bay, a man who smiled for cameras while his pregnant wife vanished.